Hi folks, Ryan Honeyman here from Lyft Economy. Many folks have come to us over the last 10 years and asked, how do I get more involved in creating an economy that works for the benefit of all life? They also ask, what skills and experiences do I need to help make this transition? So 3 years ago, we created something called the Next Economy MBA to help address this and similar questions. Lyft Economy's Next Economy MBA is an online course that's designed for entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs, students, recent graduates, employees, and folks who want to learn more about transformational next economy strategies and businesses. Join the growing alumni network of nearly 250 alumni who've gone through this program and learned essential skills and hopefully built lifelong relationships for catalyzing businesses in the emergent and regenerative economy. So we encourage you to check out our course. You can go to lyfteconomy.com/MBA. The next course, Cohort 7, starts on September 21st, 2021. So once again, go to www.lyfteconomy.com/MBA. And now, on with the show. Welcome to Next Economy Now. The goal of this podcast series is to highlight the leaders who are taking a regenerative, bioregional, equitable, democratic, racially just, and whole systems approach to creating the new economy.
So welcome, Sean.
Thanks, Ryan. Great to be here.
Yeah, thanks. So tell me, as a newer Lyft partner, you guys have been doing something sort of a new sort of evolutionary based billing approach. So maybe start out with, how did this come about, and what was the story behind a different way to bill than say just the hourly rate that majority of consultants bill?
Great, yeah, I'm happy to share about that. So the first, there's two basic concepts here. The first being pricing our services on the value we create rather than the amount of time we work. So value-based rather than hourly-based. And the idea is that if I'm actually doing some work for you, say there's a deliverable, and I'm going to produce that for you, do you really get more value if it takes me 20 hours versus if it takes me 5 hours? And the answer is no, you still have the same result. And so, again, pricing our services on that value that it actually creates for the client rather than how long it takes us to do that. So that's one shift. And then the other is actually a little bit more profound. That's somewhat common, for consulting. And there's a general trend that way, away from hourly. And part of the incentive, if it's hourly, I'm actually incentivized to work longer on the same project, right? Rather than to cut to the chase, get it done, produce value for you, and then I can be helping other clients or creating value elsewhere, right? Instead of milking the contract, so to speak. But that's more common. The other piece that we're doing that's maybe a little more unique is instead of that value being set by us and then we bill that and then that's the price, what we're doing is we're setting what we say is a market rate for that service. But the new element here is that when we invoice the client, there's actually a line item there that's blank for them to adjust that total to match the value they've actually received. So it gives them some freedom, and actually for us it's an important form of communication for us to realize if we've actually created value, if we've actually helped that client, or if there's maybe something missing or something that could have gone better.
Right. And so how did you come to this? was anyone else doing this? Did you kind of get the idea from other places? Did you kind of develop this over time? Because it's a lot different, allowing the customer to adjust the invoice up or down. It's scary, I think, to a lot of consultants. So yeah, how did you come to the idea?
Yeah, thanks. And it is a little scary. It kind of tests your nerves. But met a author and speaker named Charles Eisenstein in 2011. Met him in San Francisco, and he was talking about these type of concepts, and basically changing some of the fundamental ways that the economy works. And he shared this as an example of I believe it was a law firm that he knew that was billing this way. And we caught on to two aspects of it that are really work well for us. But the overall frame for this is if you think back, before kind of the industrial era, the economy was much more about human relationships and relationships to nature. And with industrialization, those human relationships and those relationships to nature gradually have become transformed into products and services, right? So instead of, I know my woods and land, and I know when to go harvest the acorns and this type of thing is a gift from nature, right? Instead, I'm going to the supermarket and I'm purchasing the produce that and food for myself to eat, right? So instead of it being this kind of reverential reciprocity with my ecosystem, now it's this kind of clean, sterile transaction where, hey, I paid you the $100 and you don't know me, I don't know you, we're even kind of thing, rather than this deep interconnection that you'd have with the landscape or the ecology, especially if you're cultivating it and growing your own food and this type of thing. And then likewise for personal relationships, being transformed into services. If we lived in a community and I'm a healer or a doctor and somebody's sick, well, I just take care of them because they're there they are, and that's what I do. I'm not looking for the insurance or writing up a bill of this is how much it costs. This is just how I interact in my social network. And of course, now it's a much different system. You have to pay insurance and all these things, and some things aren't covered, and it doesn't really matter if you need it or not. It matters, do you have the proper things in place? So very, very different system. So from that perspective, and of course, at Lift Economy, we have a vision for an economy that works for all life. So we want to be walking our talk as much as we can. So as we're helping these next economy organizations, it's really important for us to be doing it in a way that represents our values. And so we want to pick up some of this trend and focus more on relationships than just the transaction or the sale. So for us, it's powerful because a traditional management consulting firm, there would be a lot of pressure on sales. And sometimes the salespeople are even different than the consultants delivering the services. And so there'd be this kind of quota demand to go out and sell a certain amount, regardless if the clients really needed it or if they actually got the value. We would get them to sign a nice, long, legally binding contract for 6 months of services or whatever it was, and then we would deliver those, and then we could, enforce or demand payment on that. So instead, what we're doing is we're only working with clients that we think what they're doing is actually really important and making a meaningful contribution, providing a good or service that contributes to a resilient economy. So to be in alignment with our mission and vision, we can't just extract resources from them and not be providing commensurate value. So it does a number of things. It makes the sales process much easier for us because we don't have that high pressure sell. And it's much more about alignment. We're actually taking all the risks, so we don't sign a contract. We find alignment and identify that there's a scope of work we can do to help this company, and then we actually take the risk. We actually deliver our services in advance, and then the following month we'll bill for what we've agreed is a fair market rate. But like I'm saying, they have this ability to adjust that value to what their actual experience was.
Right.
And
so this is actually different than pay what you feel, which I think can be a little bit confusing. So it's not like you're giving them a blank invoice and saying, pay us whatever you feel you received. You're actually billing them, say, $1,000 or $2,000 a month and saying, adjust this upwards or downwards based on the value you feel you received. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's not free. It's a gift in the sense that we're not, contractually requiring them to pay that extra amount, but the amount that we set is the amount that we need to meet our own needs and support our families and our right livelihood. So that's how the number is set. And so for me, with at the rate of clients that I can hold in a given month, charging the amount that I need to bring home and support my family. And so that's how the rate is established, but it doesn't mean that's the value they got. So this billing method really keeps the focus on our relationship being mutually beneficial. So, for example, if we get back from the client that they keep adjusting the value down, well, then it opens up the opportunity for the conversation of, maybe this doesn't work. We're not providing enough value for you, or how could we provide more value for you? And then on a given, as the months proceed, if we're not trending towards finding that mark, then we know maybe we're not in a good alignment here for this relationship. Or like I said, continuing to make changes till we do find something that works.
Right. So if I was just hearing this, I'd be thinking, I don't necessarily trust, or it's a little scary to think of my clients being able to adjust downwards.
Yeah.
And so in reality, you've been doing this 4 or 5 years. How do clients respond when you present this as the way you bill? And 2, do you actually get stiffed by your clients and just have a bunch of non-paying clients?
Sure. Well, first of all, number one, the clients really appreciate it because they recognize it as fundamentally relationship-based rather than transaction-based. And so they appreciate being approached and dealt with in that manner. So again, like I'm saying, rather than kind of getting them on the hook, hey, I got you signed the contract, now you're paying me this money. It's really more about let's see how it goes and let's see if this works. So it takes the risk out of the equation on their side. The only risk that would be on their side would be the risk of wasting their time, but we've never got that feedback. And so on the second part of the question of how has this actually played out, so probably 80 to 90% of the time we just get paid what we invoice. We set the market rate, it feels good, we do the work, feels good for the client, they pay us that number, and we keep going month to month. So in the last 5 years we've worked with over 100 companies, and a lot of those have been 6 month, 12 month, 2, 3, 4 year engagements. So we can see the success because it's self-evident. We continue to work with them every month, they continue to pay us, and they continue to realize value. So in that sense, it's very clear communication and feedback. We do get, like I said, about maybe 10% of the time it's adjusted. We do actually get bonused. That happens. In general, we set our rates, what we consider market rates, would be much lower than a traditional management consulting firm, and some of our clients actually realize and appreciate that and go ahead and bonus us because they realize we're actually creating much more value than we're charging. And then we also do have the experience of having the invoices adjusted down. And so far, without exception, The reason for that that we've heard is just because the clients are having cash flow challenges in terms of their capacity to pay. So that at least it gives them the ability to get out from under that invoice if they can't actually afford it. And for us, then that's just good feedback that maybe they're not actually a client that's qualified to be able to afford our services. And so that is something that we have to look for is, how realistic is it going to be that they pay us? The good news for us is that, we're just, we're delivering our services in advance, but we typically don't work, tremendous amounts right up front with the client. So if we do work with a client for a month or two and we don't get paid, or we get paid partial amounts, they haven't been huge, losses of our time and energy.
What's like a typical engagement? So, do you meet every week for several hours, or what would you do for monthly?
Probably one of our more standard engagements would be meeting with either the owner or the leadership team twice a month. So every other week, we come together, have kind of a strategic meeting, identify some strategic initiatives to undertake in parallel with their ongoing operations, and keep those moving forward. So that's kind of the main thing we see with the small businesses is, they're competing in the exploitation economy with the price parity paradox, trying to offer a comparable price, but in reality, offering much higher quality service, much higher quality raw materials and ethical sourcing and all these things, but still trying to offer that same price. So by and large, these companies are really strapped just to run their operation, keep it running, and don't have the bandwidth to step back and look at the whole picture strategically. So that's kind of our main intervention, is to hold them in strategic space, look at the whole system of their business, identify the top 1, 2, 3 strategic initiatives to fold in parallel with their operations. So twice a month meeting for 90 minutes and an hour or two of action items and maybe documents or things to work on in parallel with that. So it's it's a pretty light engagement for us and for them. But what we've seen is over time, over 6 months, 12 months, 1, 2, 3 years of doing this type of work, we see tremendous growth and development. And really our purpose is to empower those organizations to do that as a way of doing business. So of course they take care of their ongoing operations, but they're always doing a little bit of strategic development alongside of that.
One interesting thing that I think when I first heard about you and Lyft and Kevin doing this, my perception was like, well, you're making concessionary, you're making concessions in the amount of money you can make by doing this. But what's interesting is that I used to bill, I joined Lyft in October last, month and a half ago or 2 months ago. And the way I used to bill was by project. So it'd be, 6 months, maybe $5,000, $10,000. You do a project, and then at the end, or, you're kind of done with the client. You're like, okay, the project is over. And what I realize is that you guys are not necessarily, you're billing market rate. So it's not like, you're not broke. And so what I realize is that you actually are providing a service more in line with what the client needs, one. And two, you're actually, if you work with a client for say 3 years on a month-to-month basis, it is actually more profitable for you than a 6-month high value contract that's just a one-off.
Right.
So $1,000, $2,000 a month for several years is I realized, wow, it's actually more what the client needs, and it's actually more profitable to have a lower amount, but longer term contract. So it's interesting. It's sort of counterintuitive to the original assumption, which this is just, you're just simply making concessions.
Yeah, absolutely. And we can still do that kind of more intensive type of contract sometimes we do when there's a piece of work that's going to take more resources, more time to, for example, program a detailed operating projection, a spreadsheet that would model future financial scenarios over 12, 36 months with all the variables in there. That could take 20 or 30 hours of kind of spreadsheet programming, kind of intensive, So that's an example of doing, a kind of a bigger piece of work. So we might, bill more for those months, or spread it out over a longer engagement.
Yeah.
But yeah, it definitely does leave it open. And as you're saying, we have some clients we've been working with for 5 years now. And so, yeah, if we had sold them kind of a fixed scope of work, fixed contract, maybe I would have been psyched for that first 6 months and made more for that 6 months, but it would have been less likely to renew. Whereas this monthly renewable and adjustable, we're calibrating to each other, right? So if we're billing, if the engagement was set a little too high and we're billing a little too much and they can't kind of keep up and make progress with that and realize that value, then we can easily just notch it down. And likewise, we've started the other way where we'll just start with maybe one meeting a month, kind of real light touch. And then over time, we'll kind of ramp up and add 2 meetings, or we'll start adding meetings with other people in the company. So we're not taking too much time from anybody, but we're making progress across the whole team. And then our contracts, increase because we're doing more work for the company, but it's proportional to the growth of the company. So.
Awesome. So I know we only have a few more minutes, but maybe, do you have any tips for companies or other consultants or, businesses who are interested in, starting to do this? Is there a way that they can kind of ease into this sort of client adjustable value-based invoicing, without, jumping headfirst into the pool?
Interesting. I don't know what a kind of a halfway approach would be. Maybe just trying it, with one client, looking, either a client you've had for a while and saying, hey, maybe we could switch to this approach, or a new client that it feels good. Maybe you just try that with that client rather than changing the policy across the board with all the companies. So it's good to test things, especially if they're risky. So test it on a project, a client, and see if it works. But I think if people are out there and willing to try, I think they'll find a lot of satisfaction that comes, especially in this kind of next economy realm where people are. It's more important for them to be having a right livelihood, supporting things that they really want to see growing and evolving in the world, and then adopting this as a practice that's in alignment with that. There's a deeper satisfaction that comes out of that than just the kind of this transactional based of, hey, I did this amount of work and I got this much cash. Great. Really, for us, the result of an engagement is a lifelong relationship with other people bringing solutions to the social, economic, and environmental crises of our times. These are serious times, and for us, we're passionate about spreading solutions as quickly as possible. And so if this helps remove barriers to making progress, then great.
Well, yeah. So maybe as a sort of open source transparency piece, we could post the kind of the Lyft invoice, like a blank Lyft invoice, so people can see how the client would see it, in case they want to adopt something for their own company.
Sure.
Yeah.
Happy to share, always.
Sure. So I'll post that, and then Charles Eisenstein sounds like a good. Does he have any resources or videos or books that people should read?
I believe the one I can remember is called Sacred Economics, where he talks about some of these philosophies. And yeah, I don't know, his website in particular, but he's an author of a number of books, and he also speaks and does workshops and whatnot. So you can find his work out there for sure.
Great. Well, thanks again, Sean. It's awesome chatting and learning more about, what I used to look inwards towards Lyft and see what you guys are doing to now see what you guys are doing. So looking forward to our next chat in 2 weeks.
Great. Well, thanks, Ryan. It's great to have you on board.
Next Economy Now is a production of Lyft Economy. To listen to all of our episodes, go to lifteconomy.com/podcast. That's LIFT economy.com/podcast. You can also sign up for our monthly newsletter at lifteconomy.com/newsletter. Please also rate and review our podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening.